Hello, I'm Dr. Cheryl, and welcome to Wake Up with Dr. Cheryl, Wealth Transformation. Our show is raising the awareness and consciousness in the relationship with wealth and unconditional love. Always remember that your present situation is not your final destination. The best is yet to come, by Zig Ziglar. Our show this evening is about the wealth of conscious spirituality. We have two special guests this evening, Dr. Pat Palmer and Reverend Anthony Wright, PhD. Reverend Pat Palmer is an ordained minister with the Centers for Spiritual Living, formerly Religious Science Churches, who founded the Center for Conscious Living in Clearwater, Florida, and was the senior pastor there for 10 years. She has served on the Religious Science International Board of Directors. Her ongoing work includes speaking at Unity and Centers of Spiritual Living and conducting workshops on spirituality, quantum physics, and conscious living. She is an author of The Clearing Process, which teaches a self-therapy based on spiritual principles. Reverend Pat relocated to Marin in December of 2003 to be an on-scene grandmother and discovered Unity in Marin in January 2007. Presently, Reverend Pat serves as a director of service ministry. Reverend Anthony S. Wright, PhD in philosophy and religion. He's an independent scholar of Chinese philosophy and complexity science, archetypal astrologer since 1965, also known as Yi Jing since 1967. Anthony is a concert artist piano technician since 1970. Dr. Wright is an ordained minister and spiritual counselor since 2003. Dr. Wright's study and instruction include the arena of audio production, 3 ongoing radio programs on KWMR. He currently lives in Western Marin County, California. Welcome, Dr. Pat and Dr. Anthony. Welcome, welcome, welcome. You know, it was so good of Patricia Harrigan, to contact me about getting you on the show. And the Unity Church is wonderful. In fact, my grandmother was in Unity many, many years, and she got me onto the Daily Word years ago. I've done it my whole life, read it. I read it every day.
Yeah, isn't good for you that you had such a good, solid feeling about the presence.
I didn't get it from my mother, but I did get it from my grandmother.
A lot of times we get good things from our grandmothers.
Oh, both of my grandmothers, for sure.
Yeah.
So, well, I've done the intro for you, and so the viewers know who you are and what you do, at least part of it. But I'd like you to just tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got to where you are.
Oh gosh, what a huge question.
I mean, you can, we don't have
we have 2 hours. Anyway, let's see, where would I begin?
Where are you from originally?
Well, I was born in Buffalo, New York.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and became a math teacher and taught junior high up into teaching university and thought that was going to be my profession. And then I went into I moved to St. Augustine, Florida, and my sister said, "You have to go to the Center for Positive Living." And I said, "I have no interest whatsoever." But of course she insisted and insisted. And so finally, I think it was an Easter Sunday, I went. And I never looked back. I just loved the spiritual philosophy. I had never heard anything like it.
Is that the Science of Mind?
Yeah, Science of Mind, which as many people know is so similar to Unity.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Ernest Holmes, right?
Yeah, sure,
Okay.
Ernest
Holmes, yes.
Yeah.
No place like Holmes.
That's funny. Yeah, it's just a very conscious approach to life.
Yeah, New Age. I mean, I've been involved with that for 25 years.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Over 25 years.
Yeah.
But yeah.
So for me, I was so enamored and so had such good results in my life changing that I ended up actually studying and becoming a minister.
Yes.
And so eventually founded a church, the Center for Conscious Living in Clearwater, Florida.
Yeah.
Right, yeah. So, and then my grandchildren were born in Marin, here I come.
Oh,
so
okay.
That's what brought me to Marin, because
Okay,
I wanted to be a part of that. You know, my
Yeah.
daughter and her family,
Of
and the
course.
2 boys now,
Yeah.
8 and 10 and 13.
Great.
So I have loved Unity. I didn't start going there right away. You know, I lived here a few years first, but you know, it's good to have a spiritual community.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Support.
Yeah.
And you know, actually, I've been to that church several times, and the one in Corte Madera as well. And then I was involved with the San Rafael one when Mary Jean Duresha was the minister. You probably weren't here because she was gone by then.
Yeah.
She's in Missouri now.
But one of the things I love is that people from all different religions go.
Oh, I
You
know.
and people who are intellectually curious too, I find.
Oh, totally.
Yeah, because there's so many speakers and classes and things that we have.
No, well, it's very mind expanding.
Yes.
I have to say, what I got out of it was when I gave birth to my daughter and I was a single parent, I didn't want to think negatively. And Science of Mind gave me the tools so I wouldn't think negatively.
Yes.
You know, about anything.
Yes.
You know, especially about myself.
Yes. Yeah, and for me too, my first couple of years really opening up spiritually, so much of that was spent hearing my own thoughts and changing them. Like I would think something like, oh God, I'll never be able to do that. And I'd hear myself think that and say,
it's like,
wait a minute,
stop
hold it.
Yeah, switch.
And
You got to do that switch.
make that change and say, I can learn how to do that. And having a sense of the whole spirit behind me, supporting me in whatever I wanted to do.
Well,
It's wonderful.
God is everywhere. God is in everything and in us. And I mean, our miracle bodies are a blessing from.
It's a great way to live. I don't know how I was happy before I started opening up my heart and my mind to this philosophy. Really,
absolutely.
You know, geez.
So what about you, Anthony? You got to tell us a little bit about yourself and where you're from and how you got to where you are with your spirituality.
Well, let's see. I have to start back when I was 15. I'm from Minnesota.
Where, Minnesota?
Oh, yeah, sure.
I've been to Minnesota.
Oh, it's very good. I started I was raised Unitarian Universalist.
Oh, okay.
And actually Universalist because the Unitarians were a little bit more heady.
Yeah.
And so it was very interesting to me to be in the company of my friends, many of whom were Catholic and Lutheran, of course, with the Scandinavians and Germans in the Minneapolis area. And what they urged us to do was, at the Universalist Church, was to go check out that church and go check out that one and go check that one out and get a sense of what it is that you like.
That's healthy.
And then do that.
That's great.
And my friends are going, well, wait, you mean you don't have to do catechism or this or that? And I'm going, no, and we're actually watching Margaret Mead in the basement of the church. You know, so it was a very eclectic beginning, and I also began by studying astrology because I wanted to meet girls, and it was a useful thing, and a lot of us...
That's your motivation.
Well, of course, but I mean, it's kind of a pocket psychology mode, and...
well, it's to understand, you know.
Right,
I mean,
and try and make sense.
It's not 100%, but a lot of it is so true.
Well, yeah, and I also, I'm an old rock and roll guy. I played rock and roll between 1965 and 1970, and concurrent with that, with the studying of astrology in 1967, someone suggested that I start looking at a book of Chinese divination called the I Ching, and and the Wilhelm Baines edition had gained a lot of focus and interest because of its introduction that was written by Carl Jung.
Oh, yeah.
And people are going, this is very interesting. And somebody said to me, yeah, you can toss these coins down and get these answers, you know. And I'm going, oh, really?
See, I've known that as I Ching.
Well, I'm talking...
That's the Chinese interpretation.
Well...
Or is it? I mean,
I'm taking Mandarin lessons, so the tones are I Ching.
Oh, okay, that makes sense.
And that's, so I'm working at taking pains to pronounce the Mandarin properly.
Right,
you know,
I understand.
to get in the habit of that. But anyway, I looked at the I Ching and thought, well, okay, it has 64 situations. And I thought, now how is that possible that there's only 64 situations in all of human life.
Yeah.
And 47 years later, I'm continuing to study it.
Yeah.
And actually, my committee chair, Dr. Yi Wu, said we also need to pay attention to the 384 lines. But the I Ching was deeply informative. And so then after that, how do I say this? I had a very intense personal experience where I reached out spiritually because I had not ever felt really the presence of spirit and felt something reach back. And I went, okay, that's very interesting. I've not really ever talked about this, but then I found that it was really important to live ethically and I started out by studying my academic career by studying psychology and communications, and I was involved with the Robert Bly James Hillman men's movement in the late 80s, and I was a recording engineer for them. And also, do you know who Richard Bandler is?
No, I don't.
He was the guy, along with John Grinder, who founded NLP, and they were the people who they said, well, we're going to get this guy in and crank him up and let him go and see what he does. And the guy was Tony Robbins.
Oh, wow.
They were the people who trained Tony Robbins, and a lot of you guys who are watching this will know NLP.
Of course.
So I thought, oh, this is so interesting that you can have such an influence with language. And I was also very interested in hypnosis, because when I was in junior high, when you're in middle school, you go and stay at a buddy's house, overnight. And I literally had gotten this little pamphlet off the back of a comic book, Hypnotize Your Friends, right? So I did. And I was able to get this extraordinary, all the classical hypnotic phenomena, catalepsy, positive and negative hallucination, amnesia. I went, whoa, language is so powerful to change reality like this.
You had an effect on these?
Yeah, I hypnotized my friend and had him hallucinate that a girl he had a crush on was there in the room with him. And and it was really interesting. And I just...
Yeah, I bet. To
okay.
witness.
And then my marriage split up in 1983, so I went to therapy and began to study psychology from that point, because I said, my family's breaking up, I better take personal responsibility for what's going on in my life. And so there was that component to it. And so I thought I was going to be a PhD psychologist, but when I got my degree from the California Institute of Integral Studies, and when I started the East-West Psychology program, and by the way, I really am a big fan of Alan Watts, and I've been broadcasting Alan Watts on KWMR in Point Reyes for probably 12 years now. And he's really, it was because of Alan Watts that I got my doctoral degree in philosophy and religion. And I was at CIS, and I went to look at their course offerings, and well, here was this man from China offering a course on the I Ching. And I said, well, I've never taken anything, a course on the I Ching from someone from China. First class, I went, got to study with him. So I did a 90-degree turn and went into philosophy instead of psychology. Yeah. And I'm very thankful for that.
Huh.
So you haven't heard that story either.
No, that's fascinating.
But, but then also, to go along with what I'll be presenting at Unity, in 1992, I came across this book by James Gleick called Chaos. I can't remember the subtitle, something like...
I think I've read that.
Yeah, The Beginning of a New Science. And it had one of the, I think it was maybe 50 pages into the book. And let me just show you, first of all, what a I Ching diagram looks like. And I'll just draw the diagram for fire.
Right.
Okay. And in the book, in the chaos theory book, there was this diagram that looks like this, which is, and I'll show you guys in a second, which is this is called the Cantor set, and it was developed by Georg Cantor in the middle 1800s, and it was a real interesting mathematical structure in that he said, okay, let's take a line and then take a third out of that line, and then you get 2, and then let's take a third out of those, and then you get 4, and a third out of those, and then you get 8. And you can go infinitely with that series, and it's called Cantor dust. And I said, well, now that looks an awful lot like a I Ching bigram.
Yeah.
So I looked further into this, and it turns out, and we can talk about this more, that the I Ching indeed is fractal. And we can talk about what fractals are in just a moment.
I'm not sure what that means.
But, so anyway, and then one of the other things that I do is I'm a piano technician, and I've been a piano technician for 45 years, and I do work for the major piano dealers in San Francisco and the Bay Area, and also for a number of school districts. And the work with pianos has been very, very illuminating in a spiritual mode, because in a way, when I tune a piano, I don't just tune the piano, I tune the whole space that the piano is in.
That energy
Cool.
field, it's
Yeah.
an energy field.
And people think I just come to tune the piano.
Yeah.
But I have to allow my awareness to expand to fill the cubic volume, because that's how the sound is working, right?
That's right.
And I started to get some awareness of what had been going on from what the piano had absorbed. But I can talk some more about that later on too. But
Energy.
absolutely. And so, as I say again, people thought I was just there to tune the piano,
Yeah.
but I was tuning the space that the piano was in. And there are some people who do tuning of people with tuning forks and so
yes,
forth.
I've had that. Have
you?
And it's quite lovely.
Yes.
And yet, for me to get a sense of tuning the space, it's not a localized sort of thing. But anyway, I'm getting off the track a little bit with spirituality. But you know, I was and stop me if I'm going on about this. But I've been thinking about this idea about mending the split between science and spirituality.
Oh boy.
Beautiful.
Right?
Yeah.
Well, you know,
And-
you know that the Italians finally, the scientists in Italy finally said that Big Bang is spirit.
Oh, really?
They
Oh, good.
This
How
was
beautiful.
last year.
How
Right.
beautiful.
I saw a special on the internet about it, and I thought, yes, finally.
Well,
wake
it's so
up.
interesting that,
Yeah,
that
yeah,
we've
it's
been
wonderful.
in a kind of a, I guess I would say, a social trance about
About many things.
many things, but about thinking somehow that they are separate. And I thought to myself about, well, how would we unite them? But I thought,
Metaphysics.
well, but let's go back to what the very basic expression is, and it's vibration.
Sure.
Everything is vibration.
Yeah. Yeah.
I talked to Rupert Sheldrake, and he said the nature of the cosmos is it's
Yes.
self-organizing
Energy.
vibratory energy.
Energy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
everything.
it was an arbitrary decision to split the two, and certainly in the
Man's-
Enlightenment, humans, yes,
Humans.
chose
ego.
to split.
Yeah, Descartes started that.
It's
But the Native Americans never got into
no,
that.
Thank
no,
goodness. Yeah.
Yes.
And
The grounding.
you know,
that's-
I've had a Native American person come up to me and say, "Why are you? What's the deal with you white people? How do you split yourself off from the cosmos?"
Yeah.
And I really feel
the
that deeply.
Intellectual, mental control.
I'm so delighted I get to say
Yeah,
this.
you know.
Dr. Wu would say, the problem with the people in the West is you're thinking with your brain instead of your mind.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I'll do that again
Yeah.
because I tapped the mic. You're thinking with your brain and not with your mind. And
That's right.
the character in Chinese for heart-mind is called Xing, and it's heart-mind.
Yeah.
It's not just the
No,
brain.
No, it's too limiting.
Beautiful.
Right.
It's too limiting. So how did
Anyway.
you two get together here to
Well, it's
create this unity?
yeah, it really has been just beautiful. For me, when I had the church in Clearwater, the Center for Conscious Living, I was teaching, of course, spirituality, but I started coming across quantum physics and got so interested in metaphysics, and then studied it quite a lot and started teaching a course I called Quantum Physics and Metaphysics. I taught it for the Association for Global New Thought and for IONS, Noetic Sciences, and many other churches. Fell in love with the topic. And so then, as years went on, and as I came here to Unity, I found that there wasn't too much happening in that vein. So I was so glad, I was quite supported in suggesting that we take one night a month, and it was one of our Wednesday services, the fourth Wednesday of every month, and devoted it to this idea of science and spirituality. And so I did that. I did that for a year.
Bless you.
Yeah.
Amen.
Oh, it was so well received. It's so exciting because the thing is, when people look at science, it only little by little have the discoveries of the last 100 years started percolating into our understanding of science. You know, the quantum science is just starting to be known. And it's the same thing with spirituality. For so long, you know, all I knew was religion, and that's the case for many people.
And it's
Religion
limiting.
rather than spirituality.
Right.
So both of those topics, when we go deeply into them, they're quite different than they appear. And so it's just lovely to bring the two together.
Yes.
So I got to thinking that, I know what happened. I left this out to show you. I went to this conference, Science and Non-Duality.
Oh,
Sure.
yes.
Yeah. And that's okay. I just wanted to show it to Cheryl. And anyway, it was taking place in the San Jose.
Oh, okay.
There, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And so I was so thrilled with it because all of the speakers took science, as you'll be doing when you speak for us, and spirituality, and showed how the two can be merged together so beautifully. And I thought, we need to have...
In fact, there's never been a separation.
No, that's the
But
truth.
Humanity
brain.
has done that.
Yep.
you know.
Yeah. So I thought, we need to have a conference like this at Unity in Marin.
Okay.
So that's what we're doing,
Okay.
and we're beginning our first one in April.
Right.
And then I kind of started doing research about who would be a good speaker for that, and came across Anthony's work. And after I met with you that first time, and we talked for 2 hours,
Yeah,
I
that
thought
was
this is the speaker that is just perfect to begin our series.
Great.
Yeah,
Yeah. Wonderful.
yeah,
Oh, I just would love to see this out in the mainstream because they need it more than ever. I mean,
Right.
I work in the city, and I just see how limiting that things are because they're so tunnel vision. They need to expand their spirituality, and
Sure.
it's just going to take time.
sure.
You know, I mean, I wish we could go boop and it would change, but
Yeah.
anyway, we just have to keep doing it. That's
Yeah,
what
that's right.
keep talking.
It's
That's
really
right.
important to do shows like what you're doing here and what I'm doing on the radio and what you're doing at church,
Right.
because it's a field, and we're enlivening the field.
Yes.
And there are more and more and more
Yes.
people who are going, well, that didn't work. I wonder if this will work.
Yeah.
Huh.
To expand the
What's-
consciousness
Right, right. And
and mindfulness.
there are people who aren't quite ready yet.
Well, and that's it. You know what? Everybody is on their own evolutionary path.
Right.
You know, and some people may have to live a few lives in order to get it, and hopefully the majority will wake up to it, you know, and on their level. And it's just accepting the differences of the degrees of spirituality.
Yeah.
In my own experience.
Yeah.
You know?
And what I love, what just pleases me so much, is when someone discovers their own spiritual self.
Oh.
Well, and that's
has-
when it's most authentic, you see.
Yeah.
You
And
can't
has
get it
that-
from
No.
outside.
They might like me. I went to this place
No.
called Center for Positive Living, Science and Mind Church.
Yes.
There's so many places now where people
Oh.
can have that opening. And what they do is they start to feel in a heart level an awareness of something greater than they are, you know, that is available to them, and start to open up to being fed this kind of awareness. And it just starts changing their life.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
It just completely, like, I loved what you said about as you started to wake up, you developed your ethical self. You realized that
well.
you had to live ethically.
You know,
And the same thing happened to
Yeah.
me when I made this shift into going from, no, I don't believe in God, to being so thrilled and delighted with these spiritual ideas. I started living, as you say, ethically or morally, or from just a whole different point of view, a whole different perspective.
Well, when I started, and it was because I wanted to set an example. I was a single mom from 3 months pregnant.
Right.
And I really was very serious about setting an example for my daughter. But it also expanded my unconditional love for myself. And when you're coming from that unconditional love, then you're open to other people and being able to share that. And that, to me, is what humanity is about. And
it really
expanding your mind, yes. I mean, I've taken all the practitioner classes.
Oh, you have?
Yeah,
Wonderful.
yeah. I
Sure.
just
Learning how to pray for other people.
Yes, yeah.
Sure.
But also, for myself, because if when you give it to yourself, then it's so easy to give to others, and
Right.
it just expanded my consciousness so much, and I'm so grateful for it. I mean, it's been probably 28 years that I started it, and it was what changed my feeling about myself.
Yeah. And the things we leave behind us as we develop like this are worry and fear.
Yeah, absolutely.
The two biggest things
Yeah,
that make
fear.
life so difficult
Yeah.
and so stressful. And
And
we
then-
leave those things behind us
Yeah.
because we start to think in a different way, we start to speak in a different way, and we start to realize.
And then it builds your self-confidence.
Sure.
And in an authentic way.
Yeah.
You know,
Absolutely.
And even if baby steps, it's still it's building, and it just keeps building. I don't want to ever stop learning, ever,
Yeah.
till my last breath.
Yeah.
So
And I found too that when I first started listening to some of the science topics, like the complexity science that you teach, or I remember going to Noetic Sciences and hearing Amit Goswami speak. And,
he's great.
Oh, yes. And I just, I had tears in my eyes because the
touch.
ideas are so beautiful.
Yeah.
Just when we really realize how the universe works and how everything just works together so harmoniously, as you find in your work with piano tuning, everything is just so harmonious.
I
and
have
beautiful.
been so attracted and have studied Deepak Chopra
Oh, yeah.
for years. I mean, I think he's brilliant.
What
and
an emissary he is.
Yes,
Yeah.
and he is a master.
Yeah.
And he's so ethical.
Yeah.
And I just, I saw him on one of my birthdays, and I would love to have him on my show, which is a possibility.
Oh, sure.
I mean, it's out there. It's just timing,
Right.
like everything has its timing.
Yeah.
But so talk about this
Complexity science?
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm very curious about that.
Well,
What
let me just interrupt here and say the title of our first seminar, which is April 30th, which Anthony's the keynote speaker, is Complexity Science and Chinese Philosophy. Now, if that doesn't raise your
that's
curiosity,
like here and here.
oh, I know. I am
Let's
so
bring it
excited
together.
about this. Yeah. So now I'll let you explain.
I haven't actually heard it in that context.
Yeah.
So please share.
Well, okay. My first exposure beyond the Gleek book was from a man named Kevin Dooley, and he's now at the University of Arizona. And he talked about phenomena in the world having 4 levels: linear, which is kind of one-to-one; complexity, which is one to many; chaos, which is really a lot, and it just seems really without pattern, but if you look that there is a pattern; and then randomness, where there is no pattern. And this is having to do with, there's a number of tenets. Complex adaptive systems is one of them.
Before we get too technical,
Yeah.
let me just say that I was so thrilled when I heard or read that chaos actually has a pattern to it.
Oh yeah.
Because the word chaos, you think that it means no pattern.
How can you actually have a solution without chaos?
Oh, that's an interesting
Yeah.
thought.
Yeah, that's right.
You know,
Yeah.
things need to break down completely in order to heal, whatever you want to say. But, you know, it's like, how do we grow without having those challenges of, and which becomes chaos, you know, in our lives?
Yeah.
I know I've had a lot of chaos in my life, but I've chose to, you know, learn through that so I can become a better person.
Sure.
But anyway,
Well, you're speaking about chaos as a term meaning more about upheaval rather than, when I'm speaking about chaos, I mean more in a technical term.
Disorganized,
In terms,
yeah.
well, there is organization, but it's less apparent than with something that's linear one-to-one.
But
Yeah.
don't you think having that unraveling also?
Oh, I
'cause,
agree
You know,
completely.
I don't even have to say it.
No,
He
but
already
you say what
knows.
you were gonna say.
I know that when you have that unraveling, because your mind sometimes is focused, and it expands your mind when you have that unraveling. You can look at things in a different perspective and say, "Oh, well, that's a better way of thinking of things." You know, being conscious.
Well, at least different, and you've outgrown. We're going to look at something, and by the way, science and spirituality, and I'll come back to this thing about complexity, but science and spirituality are ways of touching. How do we make sense? We touch things. And science says, all right, we're going to touch this particular phenomena. Well, okay, we'll we'll observe. Well, and we know from quantum
Is
theory.
observe a way of touching?
Yeah, well, because we're touching it with our eyes,
Ah,
right?
I like that.
And we'll touch it and get a sense of what it's doing. And as we know that there's no such thing as an independent observer, but we'll touch it and we'll make this idea about what we think it's going to do, and we'll try to predict what it's going to do because of what our theory is about it, what we think.
the limitation.
Right. Well, and then we have a hypothesis, and then
Right.
we will prove it. Right. Infinity pops that in a way out the window, and in a way, I've been listening to a course on the development of Western science and the mathematicians, and I am not a mathematician, other than an applied mathematician with the piano work, and now with this work. That mathematicians were having a heck of a time when they'd run into infinity. And to me,
Wow.
that
Wow.
when infinity shows up, that's a gateway. The unit of measurement reaches zero. That which is measured becomes infinite.
Yes, oh, I just love that.
And what I mean by that, and I want to bring in another thing about that Alan Watts talks about, the space between us is not that which divides us, it's which connects us.
Oh, that's beautiful.
So I want you to think about that.
Isn't that beautiful?
That is the profundity of the message.
And we are
Yeah,
infinitely connected.
Yeah,
Every one of us.
yeah.
Infinitely connected. And I want to come back to another point about this idea of ethics. Well, it hurts me to see somebody throw a bottle on the street, right? Because, wait a minute, that's my body. You're throwing trash into my body. I'm extending my awareness out into,
Sure.
the cosmos.
Sure.
And so, and the more that we do this work, the more aware we become, and the more accountable we must become.
Right. And when we bring spirituality into it, we could say things like, that's my body.
Right.
What we recognize is that we're all that any of us is an expression of spirit. Whether we're a human being or an animal or a table or a bottle. Everything is made up of the same
Absolutely.
substance.
And it's
The
vibration.
same energy.
And it's the vibration
It's
that
the
makes
energy.
it take different forms. It's just beautiful.
As you were talking, I started to think a little bit how the scientists, God bless them, because they are awakening. They are awakening tremendously. So I can see, I hadn't looked at it like this, being narrow, but it's also an evolution, human beings, like scientists, need to have that structure, that absolute. And so now I just see the whole picture now when you said that, of how it is becoming more infinite and evolving.
Yep.
And
It really is.
you know, and teaching it, we need to start teaching it in elementary school,
Sure.
in preschool
Sure.
to
And
children.
the movement away from the churches is part of this.
Yeah.
It's
I
not
mean,
any
it's-
specific religion.
No,
not
it's
at all.
spirituality.
Exactly.
Period.
Yeah,
It
that's
is-
part of the evolution
yeah,
of the human race.
absolutely.
I want
That's
to
right.
suggest,
Yeah,
though, that
yeah.
the little kids already know it.
Well, they do.
And
It's
I-
just the parents.
Part of the
it's
thing
the
that
teachers.
Yeah, the children have to teach the parents.
I fell
Yeah.
in love with, you know, I remember when I was 5 years old, I went outside into the woods. My parents had rented a little cabin next to a river, and I just felt the woods loved me,
Oh,
you know.
wow.
But I want to tell a little story that's really revealing. And this little girl had her father was an art teacher, and she said, "What do you do, Daddy?" And, "Oh, I teach people how to draw." "Oh," she said, "you mean they forget?"
Cute.
Yeah, that's really
Cute.
nice.
Yeah,
Yes,
no.
we don't
You have
forget.
children.
We're in
Yeah.
the midst of this social
Well,
hypnosis.
But you know, if all adults could remember to keep that little child inside of you alive at all times. I mean, of course, there's always
Well,
a
they haven't
time
gone
and a
anywhere.
place. No, but so many people just like stuff it down and they don't let it out all the time. I mean, that's one
Yeah.
thing. God bless my dad. He just missed his 58th birthday when he passed away.
Oh, wow.
And he taught me, he had rheumatic fever as a child, so he learned when he was young, and he died young. But, keep that child inside of you alive, and be able to laugh at yourself.
Well, the
you know.
Ericksonians talk about, the child is the subconscious mind.
Yeah.
It's always available, and it has that socialization. I always tell people, when an idea bubbles up and it's something that's really fun that occurs to you, thank yourself, because that's the unconscious mind saying, "Well, here, don't you want to listen to that?"
spark,
And it's
yeah.
the little voice that people talk about.
Yeah.
I have to tell you a little story about the little voice. When my grandson was about 5, he was in the back seat, of course, and we'd have great conversations as I was driving. And we were quiet for a while one day, just driving along, and all of a sudden he says, "Mimi," they call me Mimi.
Mimi, cute.
"Mimi, I know what God's for." And I said, of course, he knows I'm a minister and everything. And I said, "What?" And he said, "Well, God whispers things in the ears of children, and then we're supposed to tell everybody."
Oh, cute.
Boy, that's
Isn't
good,
that
man.
something?
Yeah, I love it.
Oh,
I love
I
it.
just was amazed.
He's a natural.
Ask
He
him-
was a natural, and
ask
he's
him to write
growing
that
up that way
down.
too. Yeah.
How old is he now?
Now he's 10.
10. Oh.
Yes. Yeah, he has wonderful wisdom.
Yeah, we
Yeah,
just
he
have-
listens. He
have to
listens.
nurture that and keep that so he can teach all those children out there,
Absolutely.
adults too.
Yeah.
So I wanted
yeah.
to continue, though, with the complexity. The reason that when I started, I've been studying the I Ching now since 1967, and I was working with Dr. Wu, and then I started to notice, to look at the I Ching and say, well, the I Ching displays characteristics of complexity science, and so do other Chinese philosophical writings. And the more I looked at it, the more I was able to see specific patterns that show up in complexity science. Now, the complexity science was really, I talked about the mathematicians from the 1870s, and they wrote these, what were called monsters, mathematical monsters, and they were mathematical monsters because nobody had the computational capability until the modern computer came along.
Oh,
Wow.
And then they could start drawing out what these patterns
Yeah.
were because there was a capability to millions of computations, right? So then these patterns start to show up. And there was a guy named Edward Lorenz who was studying weather patterns, but also Mandelbrot was studying patterns. And this started about 1970, and it began to be a science in 1970. And I'm looking at Chinese philosophy going, geez, the Chinese have known this for 2,500 years, right?
Known what, Anthony? When you say known this, what is it?
The
that you're
organic patterns that are being shown not only by Western complexity science presentation, and this is really what drew me into this. The Great Learning says if you would have the world be peaceful, then your country has to be peaceful. But if your country's going to be peaceful, then the town's got to be peaceful. Have you heard of this? If the town's going to be peaceful, then your family's going to be peaceful.
Yeah.
But if your family's going to be peaceful, then you be peaceful.
Well, that's where it all starts.
And how do you become peaceful? Well, you have to, this is a Chinese text, you have to literally comb out your heart.
Yeah.
And how do you comb out your heart? You have to extend knowledge. And how do you extend knowledge? You have to find these patterns, because once you find these patterns, then your knowledge is extended, then you become peaceful, then your family is peaceful, then the town is peaceful, then the city is peaceful, and the state is peaceful, and the world is peaceful.
You know what that reminds me of? Emerson's quote that says, "Who you are speaks so loudly I can't hear what you say."
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Who we are, the vibration that each one of
Yeah.
us is, it just
And
emanates out from us.
Just to expand on what you just said, Anthony, is I had a conversation with a woman not too long ago, and she says, I just want to have knowledge. And, you know, it triggered me because I want to have wisdom. That's my, I want to be able to look at the whole picture and feel that wisdom. And when you're in attunement, and I know you understand this being a minister, when you're in attune with spirit, God, universe, whatever you want to call it, you get information. It just comes to you when you're open. And to me, that's where the wisdom comes from. And
I
you
notice
know,
where you're pointing. You're going wisdom. You're not going wisdom.
no,
You're going
no,
wisdom.
Yeah.
Here.
Right.
Yeah, it just shines
It's
out
here
of
and
us.
here.
Right. Not in the brain,
No,
but in
no.
the heart mind.
It's the soul, really.
Yeah.
It's the soul. And that's where I've been working for years, being from that point, you know, from that
and I
source.
wanted to mention that I'm doing a preliminary workshop to my talk at Unity that I'm calling Tuning the Soul, and we can talk about that
That would be wonderful.
further depth.
And you know, we're almost getting down to the last
Oh,
time.
okay.
So I would love for you to talk about your wonderful event that you're having.
Yeah, it's going to be wonderful. We have vendors coming in and people who will be selling things that are related to the study of these topics. And we'll have 4 breakout speakers on Saturday afternoon who will be taking some of what we learned Saturday morning and applying it to conscious living consciously. And so we'll have introduction Friday evening, which is complimentary for anyone who's not sure if they want to go or not.
Yeah.
And with
I'll
a
be there
wine
on
bar.
Friday.
And it'll be at the Unity
At
Church
the
there?
Unity Church, Unity in Marin, in Hamilton Center.
I've done the inner child workshops there.
Yeah.
Way back
it's a
when.
beautiful,
No, I
beautiful
know, it
place.
is, it
And
is.
we'll have lunch. Lunch is included. Lunch is in the courtyard.
Yeah.
On
nice,
Saturday.
Nice.
So, oh, and I want to mention that for people who would like to go ahead and register before March 15th, there's quite a break in the price.
Yeah.
Before March
And
15th.
we'll put that
Oh, will
on
you?
the
Good.
image.
Okay, good.
The image will be on
Yeah.
And you haven't mentioned anything about the other speakers.
Oh, that's right, sure. Yeah, we're having, this is a three event series.
Yeah.
In July 30th, we'll have Dwayne Elgin will be coming in to speak, and he's written some wonderful books, including The Living Universe. And so he'll be speaking about science and spirituality and how they are living systems that interface together. And then in October, Julia Mossbridge will be coming, and she's a scientist who has done wonderful work. She's a neuroscientist, actually, and she'll be teaching about how the body knows things before, as you mentioned, the
Absolutely.
brain does. And in fact, she's done studies that show that the body has knowledge of something before it
Prescience.
happens.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, it's
If we
incredible.
just know how to listen.
Yeah.
you
Well,
know?
actually, that the body actually knows things before they even occur.
I know, but if our mind and our heart will listen to our body,
Yeah.
that,
Oh,
that
sure.
I'm still learning that.
Yeah, our gut is what teaches us
That's
more than our
right.
brain does.
That's right.
By listening to that, right.
That's
So
right.
Julia will be there in October.
Yeah.
So this is 3 events that are just going to be beautiful, and they're for the whole Bay Area. It's not just for
Yeah.
the Unity and Marin community.
Right.
You know, and we have the New Thought churches and the bookstores are all making the flyers available. We have several affiliates in Berkeley and in Oakland, Santa Rosa, and in West Marin.
Palo
and,
Alto.
Palo Alto, yeah.
How about in the city?
Oh, of course, yeah, in
Yeah,
San
yeah.
Francisco. So we're just
Yeah.
getting the word out to the whole community
Good.
to come
Yes,
together to
yes.
really celebrate this idea of looking deeply into science and deeply into spirituality and finding that we're at the same place.
And that they're all one.
Yeah,
It's all
yeah.
one.
It's going to be a very exciting event. You know, we'll have entertainment and lots of
Lots
opportunity
of
to get to know other
energy
people.
there.
Yeah,
Lots of
yeah,
wonderful
yeah.
energy.
Yeah, it's a beautiful venue. Yeah, so it's going to be very exciting. I'm happy that we're doing this.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Uh-huh.
Well, this has been wonderful for you to share. Are there any words of wisdom that you'd like to share before we close off?
I think I would love to share this idea that carries me through so much of what I do. And it's this idea that, well, it was like before coming on this program, you know, I don't know what to say on a TV program, but there's something I always realize, and that I may not know, but there's something within me that does.
And that's your higher
My
self.
higher self,
The
yeah,
universe
is
talking
within
through
me,
you.
always guiding and leading me. So I don't have to worry and I don't have to be afraid. I may not know, but there's something within me that does know.
And amen to your spiritual self, because our minds are limiting.
Mm-hmm.
So you listen to your higher self.
That's right. That's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
thank
How
you.
about you, Anthony? Do you have anything that you'd like to, little words of wisdom?
Well, in terms of wisdom, do you know the work of Jill Bolte Taylor?
No, I don't.
She has a remarkable TED Talk, which I'm sure many of the viewers have talked about.
Okay.
She wrote a book called My Stroke of Insight.
Oh, okay.
Oh, yes, I did read that.
And it's
beautiful.
about, I know that there's some real controversy about brain hemisphericity, but I really think that there's, because the intuitive side and the cognitive side are shared, but there has been proof and studies, and I can't remember the man's name, but a British neuroscientist speaks about this intuitive capacity being more localized, not singularly localized in the right hemisphere, but I think the more that we attend directly to our experience and allow the cognitive to serve us and not for us to serve it, the better off that we'll be, because
Beautiful.
there's more, again, we come back to this idea of we're more in touch. There's more touching,
More infinite.
yeah,
More infinite.
Right.
Well, thank you so much
Thank you.
for coming and sharing.
Thank you.
And we'll look forward to seeing this out there
I'll see
in the
you there.
universe.
Yes, it'll be
and
exciting.
your wonderful event that's going to happen.
Thanks, Cheryl.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Yep, thank you.
I'll leave you with this. Never give up, be grateful, and be grateful for your freedom. And eat healthy. Good nutrition feeds the mind and your body temple. Don't forget to exercise. Feed your spirituality with meditation and prayer. Love yourself unconditionally. Stop criticizing, stop judging. Forgive yourself and others. Try to be understanding and stop allowing others to dominate the way you feel and think about yourself. Be compassionate and share your abundance and wealth with others. When fear knocks, let faith answer the door. Remember the 4 Agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz. Be impeccable with your word. Speak with integrity. Say only what you mean. Avoid using the word to speak against yourself or to gossip about others. Use the power of your word in the direction of truth and love. Don't take anything personally. Nothing others do is because of you. What others say and do is a projection of their own dream or illusion. When you are immune to the opinions and actions of others, you won't be the victim of needless suffering. Don't make assumptions. Find the courage to ask questions, to express what you really want. Communicate with others as clearly as you can to avoid misunderstandings, sadness, and drama. With just this one agreement, you can completely transform your life. Always do your best. Your best is going to change from moment to moment. It will be different when you are healthy opposed to sick. Under any circumstances, simply do your best, and you will avoid self-judgment, self-abuse, and regret. Wealth is the ability to fully experience life by Henry David Thoreau. Thank you, Marin TV, for facilitating our show, and especially to my crew, Brad, Eric, and Mary. Thank you. If you like our show, please let us know on #MarinTV or on our Facebook page. Please support and become a member of Marin TV. Bye for now, until next time.